I did not come to the valley seeking salvation. I came because I could no longer bear the weight of my own voice. For years, words had betrayed me. First as slips of the tongue, then as confessions I never meant to make, and finally as screams I couldn't control. My throat always felt raw, scraped from inside by something that did not belong to me. A doctor told me it was anxiety. Priest told me it was guilt. A stranger on the bus once told me I had the voice of the haunted. But none of them knew the truth. Something had nested in my breath, something that spoke when I did not want to speak. So I climbed into the mountains where the wind erased footsteps, where even the trees leaned away from the path as if afraid of travelers. The valley below stretched like a bowl carved by an ancient hand, smooth, hollow, filled with a silence that should have been peaceful. It was not. The moment I arrived, the silence pressed into me. Not the absence of sound, something much more deliberate, like a held breath on the brink of breaking. The monastery stood near the valley's center, its stone walls pale as old bone. There were no bells, no banners, nothing to claim that anyone lived inside those walls. Yet the whole structure felt aware of me, waiting. I was still a mile away when I first heard it. A soundless chant. My mind stumbled over what my ears told me. It was chanting, rhythmic, layered, rising and falling like a tide, but not one note touched the air. My eardrums did not vibrate. Grass did not tremble. The world did not react. The sound existed only inside me. I froze on the path, and the chant seeped deeper, brushing the edges of memory, tapping something old in me, something I had forgotten or tried to forget. The longer I listened, the more I realized it wasn't being heard. It was being felt. My heartbeat synchronized to it. My breath shortened to match it. My steps resumed without my permission. I kept walking because stopping felt wrong, like fighting a current I was meant to follow. When I finally reached the gates, they opened before I lifted a hand. The monks stood there, dozens of them, wrapped in robes the color of ashes, faces thin and pale, lips sealed. Not with stitches or scars, but with an absence of movement so complete it looked unnatural. Not one chest rose or fell. They didn't breathe. Not even a trace of condensation touched the cold morning air. Yet I felt them chanting. All of them. I wanted to run, but my throat burned, as if they had reached inside me and gripped my breath. One monk stepped forward. His eyes were the color of old dust, and when he raised a hand, I realized how still the world had become around them. No wind. No rustling grass. Even the distant river had fallen silent. He did not speak, but his voice filled me. You have come with a burden. My lips parted. How are you? He lifted a finger, and my mouth snapped shut like a locked door. Your voice betrays you. You wish to unbind yourself. My skin prickled. It was not a question. It was knowledge pulled directly from me, scraped raw from my thoughts. I wish for silence, I whispered. It felt like the first truth I had spoken in years. The monk studied me, his shadow stretching long behind him, though there was no sun in sight. The others circled around us in a slow, floating motion, their feet barely touching the ground. They were weightless, hollow, yet the air thickened with every step they took. Then enter, the monk said inside my skull, and hold your breath. They led me through corridors carved from stone that looked older than the valley itself. The walls bore no carvings, no symbols, no history. The silence here was not emptiness. It was the residue of centuries of withheld breath. I tried to inhale, but the air tasted stale, metallic. The monk, his name he projected was Aaron, guided me to a narrow cell. A thin slab of stone served as a bed. A single candle burned without a flicker. Even fire obeyed the quiet here. You chant without sound, I whispered, unable to keep the question down. How? Aaron regarded me with an expression I couldn't read. His face barely moved. None of theirs did. Monks were supposed to be serene, yes, but these men were statues with skulls still inside them. We do not sing with air. Air is a chain. Air is mortal. We chant with what remains after air is taken away. I frowned. What remains? He placed a hand lightly against his own chest. Memory. I shivered. There was something wrong with the way he projected that word, too heavy, too final. "Why did you bring me here?" I asked. He tilted his head, and the candle flame bent toward him as though listening. "Because you are not alone inside your breath. Something rides your voice. Something that does not belong to you. We have heard it in your exhale." My blood went cold. "You heard it?" Aaron nodded slowly. "Called out when you approached. It begged for release. You came seeking silence, but the thing inside you seeks a choir."
No, Ibrata.
"No, it can't. I don't want." The walls around us pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat remembering itself. Aaron stepped closer, and I felt a chill ripple through me. "You will stay until dawn. If the breath inside you belongs to you, it will quiet. If not, the choir will claim it." "The choir," I whispered. Aaron turned, robes whispering against stone without sound. "Rest," he projected. "Your voice will be tested soon." The door closed, and the chanting began again. Not distant this time, not within the valley, but inside my cell, inside my bones, inside the hollow behind my ribs. I pressed my hands against my ears. It didn't help. The chant grew louder, and then something inside me answered. At first, I thought it was an echo, some trick of the mind responding to fear. But the longer I listened, the more undeniable it became. The voice answering the chant was my own, not spoken aloud, not breathed, but rising from somewhere deeper, where breath did not reach. It came from the place inside me where the monks said memory lived. "I am here." The words didn't form in my head. They unfurled like a cold ribbon through my veins. My hands shook, and I pressed them harder against my ears, though the action was meaningless. The voice wasn't entering me. It was leaking out.
No, iwisparat.
"Don't, not now." The chant outside grew stronger, vibrating through the stones of the monastery. My candle flickered violently, its flame bending away from me like it feared what it heard. Then a shadow stretched across the floor. I snapped my head up. Someone was standing outside my cell's narrow window. A tall figure with robes darker than the others, almost soaked in blackness. I couldn't see their face, only the outline of a hood and the pale suggestion of a mask where a face should be. The chanting everywhere stopped. So did the voice inside me. That silence was worse, much worse. The figure didn't speak, yet something cold uncoiled inside my skull, like a hand sliding around the back of my mind, probing for a moment of weakness. "You carry a fractured memory," the figure projected, but the voice wasn't smooth like Aaron's or the others. It was jagged, scraping against my thoughts with a sound I almost heard physically, like bone dragged across stone. "A memory?" I whispered. "No, it's not. It's something else. Something wrong." The figure leaned closer. "All memories are wrong when they are not yours." My breath hitched. "Who are you?" The hood lifted slightly, not enough to reveal a face, enough to make me feel seen. "We are the ones who remember without breath." Then the figure did something none of the others had done. It inhaled. The sound was faint, but it existed, thin and tremulous, like someone drawing in their first breath after drowning. The air around the window thickened, darkened, curled inward toward the hood. My candle went out. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. What are you doing?" The figure exhaled. I didn't hear it. I felt it. A wave of pressure slammed into my chest like an invisible blow. My lungs seized. My throat snapped shut. Panic surged through me as I clawed at my neck, unable to draw even the slightest breath. "No, please," I rasped. But the words were shredded, collapsing into nothing. The figure remained immobile, its faceless mask tilted as if studying how I struggled. The voice inside me stirred again. "Let me out," it whispered. "Let me breathe." My body sagged to the floor. My vision blurred around the edges. Cold stars prickled behind my eyes. My lungs spasmed, fighting for air that wasn't allowed to enter. Then a door slammed open. Light burst into the cell. Footsteps, fast, silent, too smooth to be human, filled the room. Aaron knelt beside me, placing his hand on my forehead. Suddenly, I inhaled. Air tore into my chest like broken glass, violent and painful, but it was air and I sobbed at the shock of it. The black-robed figure vanished from the window like smoke pulled into a jar. Aron's touch steadied my breathing until it no longer felt like drowning. His expression did not change, but something in the stillness of his eyes had shifted, tightened. You must not look at them, he projected. You must not speak to them. They do not chant for salvation. My fingers curled weakly against the stone floor. Who was that? Aron didn't answer immediately. His silence was a shape. Heavy.
Familiar.
Terrifying. There are monks here who stopped breathing too long ago, he finally projected. Breath is life. Without it, memory rots. I shivered. Why did he? Why me? Because something in you remembers him. The words pierced me more deeply than fear. I don't know him. Aron shook his head slightly. Not all memories begin with you. The candle relit itself with a sudden spark. Shadows rearranged across the walls, longer and sharper than before. Aron stepped back. You must resist whatever speaks within you. At dawn, the choir will decide if the breath you carry is yours alone. If not, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I already knew. If not, I would not leave the valley alive. When he left, I sat on the stone bed, chest still aching, throat raw from fighting for breath. Every time I exhaled, I felt that other voice coiled inside the air, leaving me. Patient, waiting. And when I closed my eyes, the chanting began again. Not the monks, not the valley.
Mine.
I didn't sleep, not because I didn't want to, but because every time my breathing slowed, the thing inside me stirred like it sensed an opening. Pushed against my lungs, against my throat, begging, whispering, promising things I didn't want to hear. I can help you. I can take the fear away. I can silence everything. And the worst part? Sounded like me. Not exactly my voice. A version of it. Older, smoother, unburdened. A voice I might have had if life had been kinder or I had been braver. I tried focusing on the candle. The tiny, steady flame that should have comforted me. But even that light felt wrong now, flickering in patterns I couldn't read. Shadows gathered in corners where there should have been none. I stood pacing the small cell. My bare feet whispered against the cold stone. The air was stale, unmoving. Whenever I exhaled, it felt like the room inhaled in response. At some point, I pressed my back to the wall and whispered to the darkness, "What are you?" The answer came instantly. "I am what you lost." "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, I didn't lose anything. You're not. You forgot me." My stomach dropped. Something icy slid down my spine. "What are you talking about?" Silence. Then, faintly, "They took me from you." The cell suddenly felt too small, too close. My breath quickened again, and I clutched my wrists to steady myself. "Stop," I hissed. "Stop it. Stop talking." But the voice only grew gentler, coaxing. "I never stopped talking. You stopped listening." I slammed my hands over my ears again. A useless instinct. "Get out of me." A soft knock suddenly echoed from the door. I jumped, nearly tripping over my own feet. A moment later, the door eased open and a monk, one I had not seen before, stepped inside. His robes were the same ash-gray as the others, his face thin and long, his eyes dark but not lifeless. This one looked at me with something like curiosity. He didn't project words immediately. Instead, he approached slowly, his steps unnaturally quiet. My breath caught as he reached into his sleeve and withdrew a thin ribbon of deep crimson cloth. He held it out to me. I didn't move. What is that?" The monk's gaze softened, almost pitying. When he spoke inside my mind, his tone was gentler than Aron's had been. "For your throat, to bind the breath that does not belong to you. I don't understand. If it escapes before dawn," he projected, "you will not survive." My skin crawled. The ribbon fluttered in the still air, as though moved by a breeze that didn't exist. "Who sent you?" I whispered. "I came of my own choosing." "Why?" He hesitated just for a moment. His eyes flickered. revealing a glimmer of something I hadn't seen in any of the others. Fear. Because I heard the voice inside you. It is not like the others. It remembers. I swallowed hard. What does that mean? He stepped closer, lowering the ribbon into my hands. My fingers closed around it before I realized what I was doing. Memories do not cling to breath unless someone died asking to be remembered. My heart stuttered. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, he added, "Do not tie it yet. When the chanting rises again, place it over your throat and hold it in place. If you feel your breath shifting, tighten it." How tight? Enough to silence what is not yours. The implication hit me like a cold blade. You want me to choke myself, only if it tries to speak. The voice inside me hissed in irritation, like a trapped animal. Do not listen to him. I squeezed the ribbon until my knuckles went white. What happens at dawn? I whispered. What will the choir do to me? The monk's eyes darkened. If the breath is yours, they will free you. If it is not, he looked at the candle on the table. Its flame extinguished, and then relit without him touching it. His voice inside me dimmed to a whisper. Then the choir will keep you. The implications settled like a weight on my chest. Before I could ask more, he stepped backward, and without sound, without motion, the door closed behind him. I stared at the ribbon. Thin, soft, red like blood. My throat pulsed. The voice inside me chuckled softly. Are you really going to strangle yourself to silence me? I didn't answer, but I didn't drop the ribbon either. The chanting outside resumed so suddenly it felt like a blow. Low, deep, layered, and this time it vibrated the very walls. I pressed the ribbon to my throat and felt something inside me tense, ready to push back. The first wave of chanting shuddered through the stone walls like an earthquake made of memory instead of earth. I pressed the red ribbon against my throat, my fingers trembling so violently I nearly dropped it. The voice inside me surged instantly, rising like a trapped tide finally finding a crack in the dam. Don't, it whispered. Do not bind me. I can help you survive this place. No, I muttered under my breath. You're not helping me. You're using me. Another wave of the monk's silent chant washed over the cell, stronger than before, rattling the candle's flame. My breath hitched. The air grew tight, thick, heavy, as if the monastery itself were inhaling. The voice sharpened. You have no idea what they'll do to you at dawn. So tell me, I whispered. Tell me what you are. Silence. Then bind me, and I will not speak again. I froze. That wasn't a threat. It sounded like a warning, like resignation. My hand hesitated, ribbon half raised. You're lying. If I were lying, it murmured, your lungs would already be mine. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. The chant crescendoed, reverberating through my skull. My lungs tightened as the thing inside me pressed hard against them, pushing upward as if trying to climb into my throat. I did the only thing I could. I lashed the ribbon around my neck. The moment the cloth tightened, the voice shrieked, soundless but sharp enough to slice straight through my ribs. My knees buckled and I dropped to the floor, hands gripping the knot at my throat. The ribbon burned, literally burned, searing hot against my skin as if reacting not to my body but to the presence inside me. Stop, I gasped. Stop struggling. But the voice twisted in agony, vicious and panicked. You fool. You damned fool. Do you want us both to die? I pulled the knot tighter. Instantly, the voice was muffled, shoved down deep, forced into silence. Not gone, but caged. A moment later, the pain subsided. My breath stabilized, ragged but controllable. The chant outside quieted. I stayed on the floor for several minutes, body trembling, heart hammering against the ribbon's tight embrace. When I finally stood, the cell felt different. The air no longer clung to me like thick cloth. The shadows didn't shift. The candle's flame steadied. The place had not changed. I touched the ribbon. Warm, not burning, not tight enough to choke, but enough to hold whatever lived inside me silent. For now, I turned toward the window. A pale gray tint touched the sky. Dawn was approaching, Arin returned before the first light reached the valley. He entered my cell without ceremony and stopped when he saw the ribbon around my throat. His eyes narrowed, not in anger but recognition. Someone warned you. Yes. Which one? I hesitated, then pointed to the door. A monk, thin face, dark eyes. He didn't give a name. Arin's expression darkened in a way that made the temperature drop. Describe him. I did. Arin's jaw clenched. That monk has not walked these halls in 80 years. My blood ran cold.
No. Iwisparat.
No, I saw him. He spoke to me. Arin stepped closer, studying the faint red marks on my throat. Only those who died chanting can still move in silence. My stomach twisted violently. He was dead. Dead, Arin projected calmly. But not gone. The chanting outside surged again, distant but rising like a storm. Arin motioned for me to follow. It is time. Dawn approaches. The choir awaits you. My legs stiffened. What are they going to do to me? He didn't answer. Or rather, he couldn't answer honestly. Instead, he projected a single thought. If the breath is yours, you will live. And if it's not mine? Arin didn't look back. Then the breath will be taken. The hallway outside my cell was lined with monks. Dozens, maybe hundreds, some so still I couldn't tell if they were alive. They parted as I passed, their gazes hollow but aware. The chanting grew louder, harmonic, layered, eternal. I reached out instinctively toward Arin, but the nearest monk leaned forward with unnatural speed. His mouth opened, not wide, not human-wide, unhinged. The inside of his throat was pitch black. From that void, a whisper leaked. Not spoken, not projected. An exhale that smelled like dust and old stone. You should not have come here. Arin pulled me away and I stumbled after him, pulse screaming, ribbon digging into my neck as the thing inside me pushed harder, sensing danger. We reached a massive wooden door at the end of the corridor. Carved into it were shallow indentations, fingernail marks. Dozens of them. Deep. My God! I whispered. Arin placed his hand on the door. Do not speak when we enter. Do not breathe deeply. Do not break the ribbon's hold. Why? His eyes flickered toward mine. Because the choir sings with memory, and they will try to make you remember what is not yours. Before I could answer, before I could breathe, before the voice inside me could react, Arin pushed the door open. And the choir was waiting. The chamber was enormous, far larger than the monastery should have allowed. It stretched in every direction, vanishing into darkness that pulsed with the weight of countless held breaths. The air inside was heavy, not thick heavy, as if every inhale had mass, every exhale carried centuries. My first step echoed, though the monks did not. They encircled the room in a perfect ring, each standing still, each facing inward, each with their lips sealed in that unnatural, unmoving way. In the center lay a stone platform, flat, cool, stained with faint, dark rings that I did not want to identify. Arin gestured. Stand upon it. My throat constricted beneath the ribbon. The thing inside me shivered with anticipation and dread. I climbed onto the platform. The moment my feet touched it, the chanting began. No sound. No breath. But vibration. Deep in my bones, crawling through marrow, threading itself through nerves. I staggered and nearly fell to my knees. Arin raised his hand. Instantly, the monks' chants shifted pitch. Dark. Low. Their memories pressing against mine. Focus, Arin projected. Keep your breath your own. I clutched the ribbon at my throat. The memories came like waves. Not mine. Not even human, some of them. A woman drowning in a frozen river. A child coughing blood into his mother's hands. A soldier choking on smoke. A man in chains begging for one more breath. A monk inhaling for the final time centuries ago, refusing to exhale. Each memory slammed into me with physical force, my lungs seizing with each one. Arin stepped forward. The choir will search your breath. Remain still. I tried. I truly did. But then the memories sharpened. And one of them was mine. I didn't want it to be. I had buried it. Years ago. A room with peeling paint. A door locked behind me. Someone yelling my name while I pressed my hands over my ears. A voice rising. From inside me, not outside. A scream that wasn't mine but came from my throat. A man collapsing. Blood. My own breath returning to me wrong. Twisted. Carrying something that did not belong. My knees buckled. The thing inside me surged. I remember it. It whispered. Let me show you the truth. No, I gasped, tightening the ribbon until stars danced in my vision. Aaron's voice pressed sharply into my skull. Do not loosen it. Whatever you do, do not let it speak. The monk's chant rose again, louder inside my bones. And then the chamber fell silent. Utterly. The ring of monks parted. From the darkness behind them, the black-robed figure stepped forward. The same hooded presence that had appeared outside my cell. The room chilled instantly. Aaron tensed beside me. Do not look at him, he projected. I looked anyway. Couldn't help it. The figure glided toward me, its robes trailing across the floor like spilled ink. It stopped directly in front of the platform. Slowly it lifted its head. The hood fell back, and there was no face, no features, only smooth, pale flesh, blank, like a sculptor had begun a face and abandoned it. But where eyes should have been, two hollow indentations pulsed like open wounds. The figure inhaled. The air bent toward it, pulled like water into a drain. Every candle in the chamber extinguished. Darkness swallowed us whole. My breath caught, not because I chose to hold it, but because the blank-faced figure had stolen it. The thing inside me writhed furiously. Let me go or we both die. I clawed at the ribbon, but Aaron grabbed my wrists, pinning them to my sides. Do not untie it. The blank-faced monk leaned close, its non-face inches from mine. The air grew frigid. My vision blurred. Then, in my mind, not in my ears, but in the deepest place inside me where breath formed, the figure spoke. Not with words, with my own trapped breath. You carried me once. My heart stopped. My mouth opened, no sound escaping. You promised you would return. The ribbon burned against my skin. The voice inside me screamed, let me out. The blank-faced figure tilted its head. We were one. I felt it then, recognition. Not from thought, from breath. A memory deeper than memory. Older than the drowning woman or the coughing child. Something that had lived inside me long before I ever came to the valley. My head pulsed. My lungs spasmed. The ribbon loosened, not from my hands. From the inside. The thing inside me was untying it. Aaron shouted in my mind, louder than any chant. If it breathes, you die. But I couldn't stop it. My breath, my real breath, slid out of me like smoke leaving a broken vessel. The ribbon slipped. The blank-faced monk leaned closer, and the entire choir inhaled as one. The chamber collapsed into a vacuum of silent hunger. Hundreds of monks, breathless, ageless, hollow, leaned forward in a single, unified motion. Their robes lifted from the floor as if gravity itself bowed to the choir. Their chests did not rise. Their throats did not open. Yet I felt their collective inhale pull at me like 100 invisible hands. Not at the air. At me. At the breath slipping from between my lips. The ribbon dangled uselessly from my neck now, unknotted, falling apart like rotting silk. Aaron tried to seize it, but the moment he reached, he staggered backward, palms pressed to his temples as if something sharp had driven into his skull. You must hold your breath, he projected. I can't. The words choked in my throat, because it wasn't just breath leaving me now. It was memory, tiny pieces of my past peeling away like flakes of ash. My first childhood nightmare, the face of my mother. The moment I realized the voice inside me wasn't imagination. My own name, no, not yet, but slipping close to the edge. Stop! I screamed, though no sound came. Please stop! The black-robed figure, the blank-faced monk, tilted its head, studying me the way a starving person studies food prepared for a feast. It didn't project words. It didn't need to. Felt my unraveling. It guided it. The monks surrounding us swayed, robes trailing, bodies floating slightly above the floor. Their heads lifted toward me. their mouths closed but somehow open, their silence widening until it felt like the world had inverted itself. Inside me, the trapped presence clawed upward, exhilarated, desperate. Finally, it whispered, "They hear us. They remember us. Let me out." Why? My knees buckled. Why do they want you? The answer came from everywhere. From the figure. From the monks. From my own breath. "We are the choir. You were one of us." No, that wasn't possible. A memory detonated inside me. Not like the others forced upon me, but one that rose on its own, ancient and forgotten. A candlelit chamber smaller than this one. A ring of monks, chanting silently around me. My throat bound with a red ribbon. A different one. Older. Stained.
Mine.
I stood on a platform just like this. Blank-faced figures surrounding me. Aaron standing behind me, not aged, not changed, exactly the same. And me without voice. Me without breath. Me preparing to join their eternal choir. My breath tore itself free with a violent exhale. Aaron staggered toward me, shouting wordlessly in my mind, "You must resist. You left the choir once. They will not let you leave again." The black-robed figure raised both hands. The chamber pulsed. The invisible force pulling at me intensified. Not just draining breath now. Pulling me out of me. My vision doubled, then tripled, then split. One version of me stood shaking on the platform. Another hovered inches outside my body, pale, shimmering, the outline of a person made from fog. A third struggled to rejoin, pushed halfway free by the chanting. And the monks inhaled again. My ghost self drifted closer toward them with each pull. Aaron's voice cracked inside my skull. "Fight it. Anchor yourself. Think of something that is yours alone." My mind scrambled. A childhood memory? Gone. A loved one? Faded. A fear? Not mine anymore. I reached and reached, nothing. All stolen by the choir. The blank-faced figure extended a hand, and my ghost self tilted toward it, trapped in the suction of its inhalation. I felt myself pulling apart. Breath from flesh, memory from bone, soul from shadow. The figure touched my ghost self's forehead. "Return to us." The monks surged forward. My chest collapsed inward. My ghost self drifted into the figure's grasp. Then, a crack shattered through the silence. Not loud, not audible at all, but powerful enough to split the air like lightning. A single monk in the ring had lifted his hand. The one with the thin face, the dark eyes, the one who had given me the ribbon, the dead one. He stepped into the circle. And for the first time since entering the valley, a sound broke the air. A breath. Not mine. Not the choir's. His. A dry, broken inhale that shook the chamber like a dying god. The entire choir recoiled. The black-faced figure hissed. Not aloud, but a vibration through the bones of the world. My ghost self froze. The thin-faced monk looked at me, hollow eyes soft with something like sorrow or apology. Then he spoke. Not in my mind. With breath. With voice. "You were not meant to return." The room shattered. The wind shifted again, brushing past my ear with a cold whisper that felt almost intentional, as if the orchard itself were leaning closer to listen. I tightened my grip on the fruit in my hand, the one I'd picked without meaning to, the one that pulsed like a warm animal heart. Its glow seeped between my fingers, staining the fog with a faint silver thread. I hadn't meant to taste it again. I knew what it did. I knew how it crawled inside your skull, unspooling a life that wasn't yours, stitching emotions into your nerves that you had no right to claim. And yet, my mouth watered. My thoughts wavered. I remembered the last time, how everything went wrong, how the memory wasn't a memory but a warning. A girl I had never met, running barefoot through a barn lit only by cracks in the wooden walls. Something chased her, something I couldn't see. When she turned to face it, the memory dissolved into a scream that didn't belong to either of us. I shook my head hard, as if that would dislodge it. But the orchard didn't let go. Branches creaked overhead, like shifting bones. The moon hung low, too low, swollen and luminous, painting the ground in a silver so sharp it looked like frost. Every fruit glowed. Every shadow twitched, and somewhere deeper inside the orchard, something moved with long, heavy steps. I forced myself forward. The fruit in my hand throbbed again, faster this time, like anticipation. I didn't know where I was in the orchard anymore. Each path seemed to bend behind me, erasing my own footprints. This place had always been strange under a full moon, but tonight it felt awake in a way that scraped at my nerves. Like the orchard wanted something, like it had been waiting for me to return. A branch brushed my shoulder, not from above, from the side, as if reaching out. I froze. Slowly, too slowly, I turned my head. A figure stood between the trees, thin, unmoving, half-lit by moonlight. For a heartbeat I thought it might be a scarecrow someone had tied there. But then, its head tilted. Not fully, just a fraction. A gesture too small and too deliberate to be anything but alive. The fruit in my hand warmed to burning. The figure took a single step toward me. I didn't breathe. Another step. Then, in a voice that was not entirely human and not entirely something else, it spoke. "You still carry her memories." My throat tightened. I don't know what you mean." It stepped closer, and the moonlight slid across its face. But there was no face, just shifting shadow, as though someone had carved a hollow into the night and shaped it into a person. "You tasted her," it whispered. "You saw what hunts her, and now it hunts you." The orchard groaned around us, trees bending as if recoiling. I stumbled back, clutching the fruit to my chest. "Who are you?" His head tilted again. "I am the one she ran from." A cold shiver erupted down my spine. Branches snapped deeper in the orchard. Heavy footsteps, getting closer. The figure, shadow, creature, whatever it was, looked past me, toward the sound. Its voice dropped to a whisper like cracking ice. "If you want to live, don't let the moon see you." I didn't understand, until the clouds shifted, and the moonlight fell directly onto me. Too bright, too sharp, like a spotlight pinning prey. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then something exhaled in the distance. Long, rattling, hungry. And the orchard began to move. The orchard shifted with a sound like thousands of roots pulling free of the earth at once. The trees leaned, groaning, their branches stretching toward me as if guided by a single mind. Moonlight pooled at my feet, brightening to a blinding silver that made my skin prickle painfully, as though it were burning me from the outside in. The shadow figure retreated several steps, its form thinning like smoke. "Move." It hissed, a command, not advice. But I couldn't, not at first. The moonlight felt heavy, pinning me in place like an open hand pressing down on my shoulders. My breath hitched, shallow and desperate. The fruit in my hand vibrated violently, as if trying to escape or trying to warn me. Then the footsteps resumed. Slow, deliberate, growing louder. The ground trembled with each one, sending tiny fractures through the moonlit soil. I forced my legs to respond, stumbling backward into the deeper shade under a leaning tree. The moment my foot slipped out of the moonlit patch, the weight vanished from my lungs, and I sucked in a ragged breath. The shadow figure lifted its head, attention flicking toward the approaching sound. "It smells the memory on you," it murmured. "Hers. And mine." Another step, closer now. From between the trees, something tall and skeletal emerged into a slant of light. It wasn't fully visible, more suggestion than shape, but the parts one could see were wrong. Jointed silhouettes that bent too many ways. Elongated limbs that swayed, soft and purposeful, like tendrils underwater. A spine that arched in a trembling curve. No face, just a blur of moon-white shifting like liquid bone. Paused, sniffed the air. The scent of crushed fruit and cold earth thickened. "Hide your mind," the shadow figure whispered. "How?" I whispered back. It didn't answer. The creature leaned forward, inches of its body extending unnaturally, as if its bones melted into new lengths with each motion. My stomach lurched. Even from across the clearing, I could feel its attention sweeping over the trees, over me, like a searching beam. It inhaled deeply, its torso expanding far beyond what ribs should allow. I pressed myself tighter against the tree trunk, squeezing the fruit to keep from trembling. The memory inside it thrummed like a heartbeat pressed to my palm. Her heartbeat, the girl's, the one who had run, the one who had screamed. My vision blurred with someone else's terror. I felt her again, stumbling over straw, the sound of something dragging across the barn floor behind her. The way she knew she wouldn't reach the doors in time. The way a hand, cool, unreal, closed around my shoulder. The shadow figure had crossed the distance silently. It leaned close to my ear. "Stop remembering," it whispered. But I couldn't. The memory surged, unstoppable, pouring through me in a wave of dread. The barn's rotten boards, the rattling breath behind her, the shuddering cry rising in her throat, the darkness closing in. My own breath escaped as a faint whimper. The creature turned sharply toward my hiding place. It had heard me, branches tensed above. The orchard held its breath. The shadow figure melted backward into the darkness, abandoning me completely. The creature stepped closer, slow, hungry, exhaling that wet, rattling sound. The moonlight trembled on its limbs as it reached the edge of the tree's shade, stretching a thin, pale appendage forward, testing the darkness where I hid. I shut my eyes, but the memory didn't, and neither did the creature. It leaned in, the cold of it sweeping across my face like the breath of a cave. Then, a new sound cracked through the orchard. A voice, not human, not creature, something older, calling my name, and the trees answered. The sound that tore through the orchard didn't come from any throat. It came from the trees themselves, an agonized groan that rose and sharpened until it resembled a voice forced through wood and sap and moonlit bark. Spoke my name again, not as a whisper this time, as a summons. The creature recoiled from the noise, limbs twitching violently, its shape distorting like heat rising off metal. The silver light flickered across its body, exposing flashes of something raw and glistening beneath its blurred exterior. It shuddered, then snapped its head, if it had a head, toward the center of the orchard. The voice called once more. Every tree bent toward it, branches bowing like worshippers. The creature darted away, almost evaporating into motion, disappearing between trunks with a fluid, predatory lurch. I didn't breathe until the weight of its presence dissolved completely. My legs nearly gave out. But the orchard wasn't done with me. A sharp, splintering crack echoed through the grove. One of the trees had moved deliberately, dragging its roots through the soil. Then a second, then dozens, all turning, all facing me, as if I were the only trespasser in a sacred hall. The fruit in my hand pulsed again, this time so violently I dropped it. It rolled across the ground and burst against a knot of roots, releasing a soft, silver mist. The moment the mist touched the moonlight, another memory seized my mind. Not the girls, not the shadow figures, someone older, someone dying. I saw wrinkled fingers digging into the earth, nails cracked and bleeding. I heard a low, shaking plea carried on a breath that smelled of rot and fear. I felt the horrible pressure of roots curling around ankles, calves, thighs, dragging the body downward, into soil that shifted like a mouth preparing to swallow. The memory ended abruptly, torn away. I fell forward onto my hands, choking on air that felt too sharp. "Do not accept them so easily," a voice murmured behind me.
Ispun.
The shadow figure was back, but different, taller, more defined. Its edges no longer wavered like smoke. Instead, its form was almost human now, wrapped in layers of dark, ragged cloth that moved without wind. "You let it in too deeply," it said. The orchard noticed. I stared at it, trying to gather breath, words, anything. What does it want?" The figure tilted its head slowly, like it was considering whether I deserved the truth. "It wants memory," it replied. "All memory. Yours included." The ground rumbled. The trees groaned again, louder this time, and their branches began to intertwine overhead, weaving themselves into a canopy so dense it smothered the moonlight. The silver glow dimmed to a thin thread, and then the orchard moved. Not the branches or trunks, but the entire grove, shifting, rotating, like an enormous machine of wood and earth. Trees scraped across the soil. Roots rearranged themselves. The air thickened with pollen that shimmered faintly, each particle glowing like a tiny floating star. When it finished, the path I'd come through was gone. Not hidden, gone. Replaced by a corridor of crooked trunks that hadn't existed a moment before. "It's choosing a way for you," the figure said softly. "And once you walk it, you cannot undo it." My heartbeat stumbled. "Why me?" I whispered. "Because you ate its fruit," it said. "And because you remember what you shouldn't." The corridor darkened, deepening into a black-veined hollow, pulsing faintly like the inside of a massive lung. The voice, the one that had called my name, echoed again from somewhere within it. A whisper caught on bark. Command. Promise. The orchard wanted me deeper. The shadow figure stepped back, melting into the gloom. "You should run," it said. But the path before me brightened, a thin line of silver light drawing itself along the ground like a beckoning finger. I didn't run. I stepped forward, because something in that darkness knew me, and something in me answered. The moment I took that first step into the silver-lined corridor, the air shifted, cooler, thicker, humming with something alive just beneath the surface. The moonlight followed me like a thread pulled taut, guiding me deeper even as the branches overhead knotted tighter, strangling most of the sky from view. The orchard closed behind me with a soft rustling sigh. A one-way descent. My pulse thudded in my throat. The further I went, the more the ground pulsed under my feet. Once, twice, like a heartbeat. The soil felt warm, impossibly warm, as though something enormous slept beneath it, breathing slow, cavernous breaths that made the path rise and fall. I didn't know if it was alive, or if I was walking across its ribcage. The voice called my name again, softer now, more intimate. A whisper pressed right against the back of my thoughts. I followed it, even though I shouldn't have, even though every part of me screamed to turn back. But some invisible hook in my chest tugged me forward, insistently, relentlessly. Like this was where I'd been heading all along, even before I'd tasted the fruit, even before I'd stepped into the orchard. The path narrowed until I had to twist sideways to keep moving. The trees leaned in, bark brushing my shoulders like cautious fingers. My breath fogged faintly, even though the air was warm. Silver motes drifted upward around me, rising from the ground like memories breaking loose. A face flickered in the corner of my eye, wrinkled, frightened, half buried in soil. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them again, the path had opened into a clearing. Perfect circle. And in the center stood a single tree, older, darker, colossal. Its bark was blackened as if burned, split down the middle like a ribcage forced apart. Its branches reached up in jagged strokes, clawing at the sliver of moon visible through the woven canopy. The air around it vibrated with something ancient and hungry. I felt it the way one feels the presence of a deep ocean trench. The voice came from its hollow core.
Come closer.
My legs moved before I decided to move them. The tree's roots writhed slowly, rearranging themselves. Not threatening, welcoming. I stopped just shy of the hollow. Inside something glimmered. A fruit. Not silver like the one I'd eaten. This one was black, so black it swallowed the light around it. Yet its surface shimmered with moving shapes, reflections that weren't reflections at all. Memories, lives, faces, 1,000 fragments swirling within its skin. My breath hitched. This wasn't a memory-bearing fruit. This was the orchard's heart. "You've carried my echoes," the voice said. "Now carry me." The roots tightened around my ankles, gently, but unmistakably. I could pull away, maybe, if I fought. But the fruit pulsed once inside the hollow, like a slow, deliberate heartbeat in the chest of something that had waited centuries for this moment. "Take it," the voice said, "and I will show you everything." I reached out. My fingers brushed the surface. A shock tore through me, cold, electric, violent. My vision exploded into white. Then I was somewhere else. A narrow farmhouse hallway. The smell of dust and old wood. A woman crying behind a closed door. My hand, someone else's hand, reached for the knob. The voice whispered, "Remember." The door swung open. The woman inside turned, her face streaked with tears, mouth forming a name I didn't know, a name that felt like it belonged to me and not me. Then the memory snapped. I was back in the orchard, stumbling, clutching at the hollow trunk for balance. The fruit now rested in my palm. Cold, heavy, alive. "You are mine now," the voice murmured. "And I am yours." The ground trembled. A deeper shift rolled through the grove, as though every tree had taken a single synchronized breath. Roots tightened, branches creaked, and far behind me, where the creature had vanished earlier, I heard it return. Its rattling breath slicing through the dark like a blade dragged across stone. It had followed me. It had waited. The shadow figure appeared at the edge of the clearing, urgency slicing through its smoky form. "You shouldn't have taken it," it whispered. "You don't understand what you've done." I backed away from the tree, the black fruit still cold in my hand. "What did I do?" The shadow figure's head tilted, almost pitying. "You woke it." Behind me, the ancient tree split further, cracking open like a wound, releasing a gush of silver mist that poured into the clearing and swept through my lungs before I could turn away. My thoughts weren't my own. My heartbeat wasn't my own. Something vast and ravenous opened its eyes inside me, and the creature stepped into the clearing, drawn by the tremor of awakening. Its limbs unfurled like a nightmare unfolding itself. The orchard held its breath, and then everything moved at once. The creature lunged first, not with speed, but with inevitability, its limbs unfolding. In long, liquid arcs, each motion a grotesque extension of something that didn't quite obey the physics of bones. The silver mist swirled around it, clinging to its form like desperate hands. Its breath rattled, deep and cavernous, as though it inhaled through a dozen unseen mouths. The ground convulsed beneath me. The ancient tree behind me shuddered, its cracked trunk widening as if something enormous were pressing from within, eager to escape or to be born. The shadow figure moved toward me, its form lurching in disjointed flickers, as though stepping through frames of reality rather than walking through space. "This is your only chance," it said. "Give it back." I clutched the black fruit tighter, instinctively, irrationally.
No, iwis parat.
A mistake. His head snapped toward me. "You do not understand what it holds." The creature let out a low, guttural moan, more vibration than sound, closing the distance with horrifying grace. Its limbs brushed the soil without weight, each movement bending space around it, distorting the very air. Pale arcs of moonlight bent toward it, drawn like threads pulled into a loom. Then it froze. The fruit pulsed in my hand. Once, hard. A wave of cold swept outward from my palm, flattening the silver mist and silencing the rattling breath. The creature recoiled with a violent jolt. I heard bones crack, though bones were not what made up its shape. The shadow figure stared at the fruit as though seeing it for the first time in centuries. "It chose you," it whispered. "I didn't choose anything," I shot back. But even saying it felt like a lie. The tree behind me answered with a ripping groan, its trunk heaving open like a mouth gasping for air after drowning for too long. Thick roots writhed around my ankles again, this time with urgency. Not trapping, directing, pushing me forward, toward the creature. "No, no, no, I can't." I tried to wrench free, but the more I struggled, the more determined the roots became, nudging, guiding, insisting. "You woke its memory," the shadow figure said softly. "Now you must finish the awakening." The creature regained its footing, if footing applied to a thing without clear legs. It surged toward me again, faster this time, drawn to the fruit the way starving animals are drawn to the scent of blood. I felt something shift in my chest. A second heartbeat. Not mine. Not human. The silver mist ignited around me, spiraling into the air, wrapping around my shoulders, my throat, my skull. The orchard dimmed, all sound collapsing inward until I could hear only my pulse. And the other pulse. And the voice. "Let me in." The black fruit split, Not fully. Just a thin crack down its surface, revealing slivers of swirling light beneath its glossy skin. Faces pressed outward from within. Some screaming, some laughing, some silently watching with eyes filled with unbearable memory. I felt the world tilt, saw the farmhouse again, saw the dark barn, saw a corridor of stone where monks whispered breathless chants, saw a woman sinking beneath the roots, saw a child staring at a full moon with silver pupils. All memories that didn't belong to me, all demanding to be known. I staggered forward, forced again by the roots, the fruit burning cold enough to numb my fingers. The creature lunged. I raised the fruit without thinking. The sound that erupted was not mine. A deafening, shattering blast. As if every trapped memory within the fruit screamed at once. The creature shrieked, its form crumpling inward, collapsing in on itself like wet paper. The silver mist exploded outward in a violent shockwave, flattening the clearing. Trees bent backward, branches snapping under the force. The shadow figure shielded itself with its arms but was still thrown toward the treeline. I stood at the epicenter, motionless. The fruit's crack widened. Something inside stirred, something that had waited lifetimes. Every root in the orchard trembled. Every branch leaned in, and the voice whispered again. No longer distant, no longer hidden in bark or mist, but inside my skull, behind my eyes, woven into the beat of my heart. Now you see. Silver light poured across my vision, blinding me, filling me, drowning me. And I understood, too late, that the orchard had never wanted my memories. It wanted my body, my life, my voice, a host. And with the creature collapsing and the fruit splitting open in my hands, I felt the true awakening begin. Something ancient, something vast, something that had been waiting for someone who could remember. Someone like me. The shadow figure screamed my name. The orchard answered, and the world went white. The white swallowed everything. Sound, breath, thought, until there was nothing left but a ringing emptiness, like my mind had cracked open and fallen into a silent abyss. For a moment, I didn't know if I was standing, floating, or disintegrating. There was no orchard,
No creature.
no shadow figure, no body, only the voice, not outside me anymore, but through me. Your memories are fragile. Let me strengthen them. A pressure built behind my eyes, subtle at first, then sharp enough to make me gasp. Not aloud, but in whatever space my consciousness still occupied. Images burst like sparks across the blankness. Not mine, never mine. A girl running through snow, a monk kneeling in silent prayer, blood dripping from his ears. A field of moonlit fruit glowing like scattered stars. A man screaming as roots slid beneath his skin. A child floating in a river, eyes open, silver pupils reflecting the full moon. The orchard wasn't giving me memories. It was downloading itself into me, feeding me its centuries of hunger, loss, worship, rage. I tried to push back. I tried to scream, but the scream stayed inside, bouncing through the white void like a trapped bird slamming into glass. Then, suddenly, a hand gripped my shoulder. Real, physical. The whiteness shattered like thin ice under a stone. I crashed back into myself with a violent jolt, knees buckling as the world of trees and soil and cold air snapped back into being. I collapsed to the ground, fingers clawing through roots that twitched like living veins. The shadow figure was crouched beside me, gripping my shoulder tightly, its shape flickering wildly as if barely holding itself together. You almost disappeared, it rasped. It almost consumed you completely. My breath came in shuddering heaves. The clearing spun. Silver mist curled in and out of my lungs with every inhalation. What is happening to me? I managed. The figure stood slowly, looking down at me with something like sorrow. You've been chosen as its vessel, it said. Its voice, its memory, its rebirth. A surge of cold washed through my veins, my own pulse staggering as if trying to resist the invasion.
No, iwis parat.
I didn't choose this. The orchard does not ask, the figure replied. It takes. A deep, thunderous crack echoed behind me. The ancient tree, the blackened giant that had split open, was trembling again. Its hollow pulsed with blinding silver light, beating like a monstrous heart. The wound in its trunk widened further, and something moved inside. Something shifting, expanding, awakening. The shadow figure stepped back. "It's coming," it whispered. "What is?" I asked, though a sickening part of me already knew. "The first memory," it said. "The one that created the orchard. The one imprisoned in its roots. The one that needed a mind strong enough to hold it." I staggered to my feet, the world tilting dangerously. The black fruit, cracked open, glowing from within, still hung in my hand like a burning coal. It pulsed again, and pain exploded up my arm, streaking into my skull.
I screamed, doubling over.
The shadow figure reached for me, but the ground split between us. Roots erupted upward, forming jagged spires that forced it back. It hissed in frustration, slashing at the roots with ghostly claws that passed through them uselessly. The orchard had decided. I was no longer to be protected, only prepared. My vision blurred. I tasted iron. My knees buckled again, and I caught myself on one hand, the other still clamped around the fruit as if fused to it. The ancient tree convulsed. The cracking sound grew deafening. And then, a figure stepped out of the hollow, human-shaped, tall, dripping with sap that gleamed like liquid moonlight. Its skin was streaked with bark-like fissures. Its eyes were hollow pits filled with swirling silver. Its movements were jerky, as though newly learning how to inhabit a body. But the worst part, its face. It was my face, a distorted imitation, a memory version of me sculpted from wood and moonlight and centuries of stolen voices. The shadow figure screamed, the orchard roared, and the double, my reflection carved by an ancient hunger, raised its head and spoke in a voice that belonged to me and not me at once. "Give me the memory and be free." It reached out a hand. My body moved without my consent. A step forward, then another, drawn by something deeper than fear, deeper than instinct, deeper than the self I once knew. The shadow figure shouted my name. The orchard whispered it, and my double extended its hand further, silver light dripping from its fingers like cold fire. "Come." My heart shuddered. My breath caught. My arm lifted. The fruit pulsed. Something inside me began to break. And then something else, something buried in the darkest corner of my mind, something that was mine, flared against the invasion like a spark resisting a storm. I froze. The double tilted its head, confused. The orchard trembled. I breathed a single word. No, the ground split open beneath us, and everything fell. The ground didn't just open. It yawned, widening beneath us like the orchard had torn its own chest apart. Soil and roots sheared away in long, twisting ribbons. I fell with them, weightless for a moment, then slammed into a slope of pulsing roots that carried me downward like a living shoot. The black fruit stayed welded to my palm. The silver mist clung to my skin. The voice hammered against my skull in furious, rhythmic pulses. "You are mine." I slid deeper. Branches scraped my arms, my face, not wounding but searching, like fingers checking for fractures, for openings, for ways in. The world narrowed to darkness broken by streaks of silver. My breath stuttered. Somewhere above me, my double screamed, not with fear, but with rage. Something enormous crashed against the lip of the fissure as I was dragged farther down, swallowed by the orchard's roots. The shadow figure called after me, its voice shredding into echoes. "Fight it! Fight!" But then it too was gone. The slide ended abruptly. I fell a final few feet and hit something soft, spongy, warm, strangely gentle. I staggered to my feet. I was underground, and not. A cavern stretched out before me, impossibly large, lit entirely by the glow of roots that pulsed like veins under translucent skin. The air tasted metallic, as though it had been breathed by something massive and ancient for too long. And there, in the center of the cavern, a heart, a literal heart, the size of a house, suspended from the ceiling by thousands of roots, beating slowly, each thud echoing through the chamber like distant thunder. Every beat sent a ripple through the walls, through the floor, through me. I understood. This was the real orchard. The surface above was merely its skin. I took one step toward the heart. The black fruit blazed in my hand, responding to the thing that had birthed it. A whisper hissed across the cavern. My double emerged from the shadows. But down here in the orchard's core, its form was clearer, crueler, vaguely luminous. Its bark skin rippled like something alive beneath it. Its eyes glowed with deep knowledge, ancient hunger. It wasn't just a reflection of me. It was the orchard's attempt at a vessel I had stolen from. It moved toward me in slow, deliberate steps. You were chosen to finish what the others failed, it said in my voice. You carry the first memory. Give it to me. My hand trembled around the fruit. I'm not giving you anything. It smiled. My smile. But wrong. You already have. It lifted its hand. The heart behind it pulsed harder. Twice, then again, each beat a demand. Roots began to stir at my feet, snaking upward, coiling around my ankles like affectionate serpents. Not again. I yanked free, stumbling backward. The double stepped forward, unhurried. You cannot fight the orchard, it said. It remembers everything. It remembers you. It remembers all you could ever be. The fruit pulsed. Memories, none mine, rushed through me in violent flashes. Faces, screams, moons, roots, centuries of hunger and worship and sacrifice. The force of them dropped me to my knees. The double approached, raising its hand to take what was in mine. Then, a shadow moved between us. The shadow figure. Somehow it had followed me into the cavern. Its form flickered, barely holding shape. It reached toward me, voice strained and weak. Listen, you are not a vessel. You are a memory thief. You took what it wanted. That is your power. I don't want any of this, I whispered, shaking. Wanting is irrelevant, it rasped. You must choose. Destroy the memory or become it. The double lunged. The shadow figure threw itself at it, their forms clashing. One of moonlight and wood, the other of smoke and absence. They tore at each other, neither flesh nor spirit, both screaming in a language older than words. I looked down at the fruit. The crack had widened. Light spilled out, swirling like trapped souls. I felt them pulling at me, tugging at my grip, begging to be freed. Behind me, the heart pulsed faster, the entire cavern trembling. The orchard was waking fully. If I don't end this now, I lifted the fruit. The double broke free of the shadow figure and sprinted toward me, its movements wild, frantic. Give it to me now, I squeezed. Hard. The fruit shattered. Silver light erupted, violent, absolute, obliterating the darkness. The cavern screamed. Roots writhed. The heart convulsed, its rhythm spiraling out of control. The double shrieked, a ragged, splintering sound, as its form cracked like glass under pressure. Light poured from the fractures, tearing it apart from the inside out. The shadow figure threw itself over me as the blast intensified. The cavern collapsed. The world became a storm of light and roots and roaring and memory, and then silence. Not death, silence. Real, peaceful silence. I woke in the orchard, but different. The trees were still. The fruit hung dark and quiet. The creature was gone. The air was clean of silver mist. The ancient hunger, the one that had breathed through every root, was gone. I stood on shaking legs. The shadow figure lay on the ground nearby, flickering faintly, like a candle flame struggling to stay alive. I crawled to it, heart raw. You saved me, I whispered. It didn't speak. It simply lifted one trembling hand and touched my forehead. A memory, not stolen, not forced, but gifted, passed between us. A memory of the orchard before the hunger, before the first memory had taken root. A time when this place was sacred, not consuming. When voices sang here, not screamed. When memory was a blessing, not a weapon. The figure's form rippled, fading. You returned what was stolen, it whispered at last. The orchard can sleep again. Will you be okay? I asked. It didn't answer. It only smiled, a soft human smile, and dissolved into the air like ash carried away by a gentle wind. I sat alone among the trees for a long time, listening. There were no whispers, no voices, no summons, just the rustle of leaves in a harmless breeze. And for the first time since stepping into this place, I felt like me again. I walked until I found the forest's edge. The orchard did not stop me. It did not rearrange itself. It simply let me go. The sky was paling with the first hints of dawn when I stepped out into open land. I looked back once, at the twisted canopy, at the place where moonlit fruit had changed everything. The orchard was quiet, sleeping, waiting, but no longer hungry, no longer haunted. I turned away. The sun began to rise, and for the first time in what felt like centuries, perhaps for the first time ever, I breathed without fear. The monastery was collapsing behind me, each beam groaning like a dying animal, but I couldn't move. My body refused. My legs shook beneath me as if the earth itself trembled. The last of the red light faded from the sky, and with it, the final echoes of the Breathless Choir's silent chant dissolved into the cold air. I don't know how long I stood there, seconds, minutes, years. Time stretched into something thin and brittle. My throat burned with a scream I could not release. Then, slowly, the night breathed. I heard it, the faintest rustle, like parchment sliding across stone. A soft pressure formed at the back of my mind, delicate but insistent. For a moment I thought it was only the aftermath of everything I'd endured. But no, it grew stronger, clearer. A familiar rhythm pulsed beneath it, a pattern that had followed me since the first dawn I arrived in the valley. A wordless chant. I held my breath. No, no, not again. It should have ended. I ended it. But the silence did not care about what I believed. It curled through the darkness, slow and patient, wrapping around my ribs, threading through my lungs. My vision blurred around the edges, and I thought I saw shapes moving in the treeline. Thin silhouettes robed and swaying, their faces hidden in shadow. Watching, waiting. I stumbled backward, my heels slipping in the wet leaves. A shiver crawled up my spine. The chanting pressed closer, warm as breath on the nape of my neck despite coming from nowhere, from no one. I broke the vow, I whispered. The valley exhaled. The trees bent inward ever so slightly, as though bowing. And then the voices, 8 of them, a full octave, slid into my skull in perfect, impossible harmony. Not spoken, not sung, simply there. The vow breaks the speaker, not the other way around. My lungs froze, my breath hitched painfully.
No, I whispered.
I won't become one of you. Another breath of silence, colder this time. There is no becoming, only continuing. Something brushed my ankle. I jerked away, heart thrashing, and saw nothing. No branch, no vine, no hand. Just the forest floor, dim and still. But the shadows thickened, gathering at the edge of my sight like a tide preparing to swallow me whole. You carried our song. The voices murmured with gentle certainty. And now the song carries you. The cold air entered my lungs again without my permission. I tried to cough it out, fight it, reject it, but it filled me, expanding inside my chest until I thought it would shatter my ribs from the inside. My fingers tingled. My jaw clenched hard enough to ache. The world dimmed until I could barely see the outline of my own hands. Then, a soft humming rose from my throat. I slapped both hands over my mouth in horror. But the sound kept going. Muffled, patient, steady. My knees buckled and I fell into the dirt as the silent chant, their chant, rolled out of me without breath, without vibration, without consent. A tear slipped down my cheek. My body shook as the voices inside me deepened, layered, harmonized, weaving themselves through my bones like threads tightening a loom. You heard our silence, and you answered. The vow is written in your lungs now. There is no leaving, only echoing. My tears fell faster. No, I tried to say, but the word never touched the air, because I no longer had a voice to give it shape. My breath didn't exist anymore, only the chant. Only the silence. Only the valley listening with ancient, hungry patience. The shadows of the monks drifted nearer, their outlines quiet and unbroken. They did not touch me. They didn't need to. I could feel them like a memory of hands hovering just above the skin. My vision flickered. The world narrowed. And the last thing I saw was the monastery's ruined silhouette glowing faintly in the moonlight, as if welcoming me home. My lips trembled once, twice, then went still. The silent chant rose from within me like a second heartbeat. And I understood at last with terrible clarity. I had never escaped the Breathless Choir. I had joined it. The valley is quiet tonight. I do not know how many dawns have passed since my voice disappeared into the chant. Time has lost the edges it once had. My body drifts between the trees without footsteps, without breath, without the burden of living flesh. I remember the sensation of walking, but my legs now move as if through water or through memory, weightless, inevitable. I should feel fear. Instead, I feel listening. The other monks drift nearby, though I no longer see them as robed figures. They are currents of silence, shaped like the memory of men. Their presence brushes against me like cold wind. Each time they come close, the chant inside me strengthens, threads pulling tighter through my hollowed lungs. I thought I would lose myself entirely. I was wrong. I have lost the boundaries of myself, yes, the edges where my voice ends and their silence begins, but something remains. A single spark, faint but stubborn, like the last ember in a dying hearth. At times it pulses, resisting the tide of quiet that surrounds me. They feel it. They wait. The valley no longer looks the way it once did. Where trees stood, only silhouettes remain. Where rivers ran, only glimmers move beneath the surface, as though the water learned the chant and no longer needs to flow. The sky hangs low, swollen with dusk even at midday. And the monastery, it is no longer ruins. Not exactly. The stones reassemble themselves in the corner of my sight, always half-built, always shifting, like a memory trying to remember itself. When I turn to look directly, it crumbles again. It wants to stand, but the silence it houses is too heavy. I understand this now. Silence is not absence. It is hunger. Every dawn, when the chant rises from us, soundless, breathless, I feel the valley stir beneath the earth. It listens, it deepens, it learns. The silent voices of the monks pour into the soil like water seeping into old roots. But lately, something new has begun to echo back. Not a voice, a footstep, far away, near the edge of the valley. Faint but real, hesitant. A stranger wandering too close to the borders where the air grows thin and the dawns sound wrong. I should warn them. I cannot. I should run to them. I cannot. The chant holds me, but part of me remembers what it felt like to arrive here. Confused, curious, ignorant of the thin line between silence and oblivion. Another soul is walking toward the same fate, and the valley feels it. The chant inside me swells, stretching like a beast waking from long sleep. The monks drift toward the sound. I drift with them. I cannot stop myself, though a single flicker inside me tries, burning dimly against the expanding quiet. The valley shifts. The wind stills. The dawn waits. And in that pause, I understand something with terrifying clarity. The Breathless Choir was never meant to be small. The silence wants more voices. And now I am part of the invitation.